let's move on to the most important topic. Well, not the most important, but the most interesting topic, and that is the nominees. And the four ones that are really considered the most problematic are Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., and Kash Patel. And so I guess my first question would be to both of you. Do you support all four of them? Are there any nominees that you don't support?
Carrie, I can take this first, but the president put these people into these positions for a reason. Obviously, he saw something in them that stands out that he believes will be good for those specific roles. And I think the president is doing something completely different than what he did when he first, during his first term. And he is looking at people who understand the bureaucracy. He's looking at people who are disruptors in the industry. And I think that's really important given that they're setting up a completely new department, the DOGE department, to get rid of the bureaucracy, to cut the fat. And being in that industry for almost 14 years, I have seen how much money is wasted on duplication, redundancy of human capital resources, and it's astronomical. And I think having disruptors in those roles, which are really important departments, would give us, the U.S., an edge over our adversaries. And I think, I come from the Intel DoD side, and having someone like a Pete in there, I think would be an interesting take, especially with some of those high-ranking generals who will do everything in their power to stay in power and to ensure that some of these programs are getting pushed and the funding of them is also coming through because that's their livelihood. We need to invest more in technology that actually helps us gain an advantage in the next century. The war is not going to be on the ground like it used to be. It's going to be in space and cyber. And we need to get ahead of China and Russia in those domains before we start looking at other policies that the Biden administration, for instance, put into place, specifically the woke policy, specifically where military recruitment was based on getting folks to join because they would get free surgery to transition from one gender to the next.
Oh, come on. That's like two people. That's such a, come on, seriously.
But the reality is, people were put in positions where they had zero business being there.
Like
and
that there were two of them.
Well, when the other side, when our adversaries and the rest of the world is looking at this, they're laughing at us. They're laughing at us.
Speaking of laughing, the arguments you've made are actually the precise reason that Pete Hegseth has no business even. I mean, he is spectacularly unqualified. He is comically unprepared. And by the way, for someone who got elected as part of his platform that the world is on fire, it's also gross negligence because you need someone that has experience running a bureaucracy. You need someone who can deal with the ins and outs of a $900 billion budget. Please tell me how Pete Hegseth, and I would get this from Carrie too. How is he? And this is, by the way, this is not even getting in to all the sexual allegations, the fact that he doesn't think women should be in the military. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, putting that aside, and the fact, I don't know if you heard, but did you hear about the man, Carrie, who was escorting him around Capitol Hill yesterday? Do you know who that is?
No, who?
Well, as always, please allow me to educate you. John Jacob Heisenbaum was a guy who basically kicked the crap out of a civilian. And Pete Hegseth is just another example of how he defends these derelicts who have been accused of heinous crimes against their own fellow officers or against civilians. But please, I'll open up to both of you. How is Pete Hegseth qualified to be defense secretary? I'll start with you, Carrie.
Well, he's a decorated military combat veteran. He
so is 10,000 other people.
Okay. So
how does that qualify you to run a huge organization?
That doesn't mean anything?
Not when it's great. I mean, it's noble, it's honorable, but how does that qualify you to run a business? It wouldn't qualify him to run GM. How does it qualify him to run the
Dave, I
Pentagon?
think you're missing the point of Trump's election, which is people don't want status quo.
Answer the question. You're not answering the question. How is he qualified besides serving? What else?
Because he's a very intelligent person.
When
he has a Princeton undergrad, it's like.
I thought the Ivy League was bad. I thought it was woke. I thought that was a strike against people that if you went to Harvard and Princeton.
Well, he actually, as I recall, he actually ripped up his Harvard degree live on Fox.
Okay.
But,
I see.
Dave, I think you're missing the point that you are looking at the lens of a normal bureaucrat. But the problem is the normal bureaucrats have created a mess. They didn't fire, as I understand it, not a single person was fired when we pulled out of Afghanistan. That is a moral failure.
I'm not defending it, but you're not answering the question, though, other than going to, I mean, the fact that other than going to Harvard and being a decorated veteran, that he's qualified, which means otherwise he's not. So I will give our distinguished guest
Dave,
a chance. Maybe she can come up with real reasons. You're not coming up with a single reason.
Dave,
that's verified. And by the way, let me just say one more thing. I agree with you. First of all, a president should have a right to appoint whomever he wants. And I think a lot of these nominees, they wouldn't be my choice. But you know what? Like the Secretary of Energy, I think that's not someone I agree with philosophically, Mr. Wright, but President has the opportunity to do that. But when it comes to the Pentagon, when it comes to when the world is more dangerous, certainly than it was 8 years ago, but Marvin, someone who is so grossly unqualified. So are there any nominees that you would oppose? Do you think Kash Patel is good for the FBI? How about Tulsi Gabbard, that Syrian-loving Putin talking points person? Is she qualified? Are there any nominees that you would oppose that Trump has nominated?
David, I think you're misunderstanding, again, the point of a
You're not answering the question. I'm asking you a question. You're giving me the big picture to avoid answering the question.
No.
Are there any nominees that you would oppose? Yes or no?
I would, as of right now, I wouldn't oppose any of those. Okay. I would vote for them. And David, I think again, the point of a political appointee is their instincts and their judgment and their loyalty.
Judgment? A guy who's been accused and convicted of sexual, he had a woman sign an NDA?
That wasn't a conviction.
You're telling me about judgment?
No, there were no there were no charges. You said the word convicted. That is factually wrong. Convicted implies a judicial system involvement. There were no charges filed.
There was settlements, but the point is, if you have someone sign an NDA, there's obviously a lot going on. The funny thing is, he let that woman release her from the NDA. If you have nothing to worry about, let her speak. But anyway, let our guests talk because we've been monopolizing this. Are there any nominees that you would oppose?
As of this time, I would not. And look, at the end of the day, I'm not the president. I'm not the one choosing these folks. We just hope that they do the best job that they can when and if they get confirmed. And they will also have advisors with them. So it's not just a top dog. They're just at the top managing the entire department. But there are so many people that are involved in these departments and in the decision making that these nominees are leading, but they're not necessarily the ones making all of the decisions below that level. And look, corruption is everywhere. We've seen it with Democrats. We've seen it with Republicans. It's part of human nature. We had Bill Clinton in office talking about how he did not have relations with that woman, an intern, right? An intern, a White House intern. And, and that's a sitting president. So I mean, Hillary Clinton with her emails in Syria, right? I mean, or Benghazi, I'm sorry. You can get all the dirt. You can start bringing all of these things up. People are people, regardless what party. I'm just hoping that whoever is in charge, whoever is leading these organizations is able to put their egos aside, listen to the people who are their advisors, who understand how the dynamics work, and finally get us back into an environment where the bureaucracy is not overpowering, where we can actually be effective and efficient, get back to our position as the world leader on a lot of different things, economy, diplomacy, tech. And that's where I'm very hopeful that this administration, this go around, has looked at all of that and has started to put people in place that will truly guide us in that direction.
Well, first of all, I think any Trump supporter pontificating about corruption is pretty rich, because the grift from this administration was greater than any other administration. Second of all, Carrie is conflating what the misreading the election with lack of qualifications. And the Senate does have an advise and consent role. And when someone is grossly unqualified, now I think Pete Hegseth, a lot of senators, and I have to say, I was really disappointed in Joni Ernst, because she's an upstanding person and she crumpled. And these, at least this MAGA crowd is trying to pressure people and threaten primaries. And I always give credit. Trump said at his news conference in Mar-a-Lago that he would not necessarily get people primary. But in Pete Hegseth's case, I think a lot of senators are just going to depend on gravity to sink this nomination. So my prediction is that Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth will go down. Unfortunately, I think RFK is the one who could potentially do the most damage. And Kash Patel, unfortunately, gets to float under the radar. And President Biden, with that disastrous pardon, which is just another self-inflicted wound, which has about a 22% approval rating nationally, took the spotlight off of a guy who said he was going to close, was an enemies list, and said he was going to close the FBI headquarters and turn it into a museum of the deep state. I mean, these are the kind of people that you do not need to have. And I'm hoping the Senate will do its job, but unfortunately, the history of Republican senators showing spine when it comes to Trump is not very encouraging.
Well,
Carrie,
we're running over, so we got to wrap it up.
Yes.
But
Okay.
I think we should give people the benefit of the doubt. Let them see what they can do.
And we'll see what happens in the hearings. I think the hearings will come out. I think the hearings, apparently Tulsi Gabbard had a really bad week on the Hill. I think the hearings will sink her, and I think Hegseth's history will sink him. But sadly, I think Patel and RFK will make it through. But again, I'm optimistic. I really hope the president will say, you know what, I have a chance to really have a great legacy here. And I'm inheriting a good economy. I'm inheriting a time where our military is the strongest it's ever been. Our enemies are on their knees. Again, the Biden administration's messaging is so bad, but the achievements of Iran being weakened and Syria falling and Russia being weakened and Hezbollah being decimated, this is something that President Trump would rightly be pounding his chest about. But anyway, we'll have to leave it there. Unfortunately, very scintillating conversation. It's great to have you on the show. You can see we're spirited but civil around here. So I hope you will come back.
I very much enjoyed it, and thank you for the very colorful conversation.
It always is. It always is. Well, that will wrap it up for us once again at Practically Political. But thanks so much to our wonderful guest, and thanks to all of you for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you next time.